Now, if you are preparing for the department interview, one of the questions you may be asked is, why do you want to be a police officer? Let's talk about this.
Roger, 4904 Ithaca Avenue for a shooting.
This is Christopher again. Those of you who are going through or will be going through the hiring process will have to conduct a department interview. One of the universal questions, or at least something similar, will be asked, why do you want to be a police officer? Now, the question is so important right now with the riots, the defund the police narrative, the George Floyd incident. People really have to think about this question. Keep in mind, when doing these department interviews, the categories that you'll be critiqued or judged or graded on, some are your interpersonal skills, how you relate to others, your maturity, and your judgment. Always keep this in mind. Law enforcement's primary job is to communicate with people, talk them into handcuffs, talk them down from the bridge, talk them into putting down the knife, and so on. So your questions should be framed around thinking like this. When answering these questions, you want to come across relatable. So what are some things to consider when asked, why do you want to be a police officer? Biggest point, be sincere. Remember, those who are interviewing you are police officers. They have a good sense when someone is BSing them or not telling the truth. Now, to come across sincere, you need to be honest with yourself and don't try to make something up because you think that's what they want to hear. So what are some things you should consider when drafting your response? Past experiences. Was there an incident in your life where the police helped you? Maybe you were a kid and the police showed up to your home for an incident and you remember how the police officer left a lasting impression on you. And that's, when you told yourself, that's what I want to be when I grow up. Was there a classroom presentation? How many of you remember DARE or Career Day when one of your classmates' parents were in law enforcement and they came and gave a classroom presentation? Is it some of those past experiences that made you want to be a police officer? Number 2, family tradition. Do you come from a family that serves in law enforcement? Speak on that. As a kid, I grew up with my dad coming home, telling us stories, glad he was home. My brother became a law enforcement officer, and it's the greatest thing he's done. He loves to help people, things like that. So if it's a family tradition, by all means, there's a lot of people in law enforcement that it is a family tradition. Number 3, you genuinely want to help people. For as long as you can remember, you were the kid who stood up for people. Do you hate to see people be taken advantage of? Is there something inside of you that makes you inclined or motivated to stand up for people who really don't stand up for themselves? There's an old saying, there are 3 types of people in the world: sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. Law enforcement is a sheepdog type of career. So keep that in mind. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google sheepdogs, okay? Sheepdogs are the guardians and the protectors of society. Those that aren't afraid to stand up for what is right, even when it means going against the crowd, and have the courage to face danger and save others. Does that not sound like what law enforcement does? Now, there are, on the other end, things you want to stay away from: judging, being offensive, or thinking you know better. Remember, the officers on your panel have dedicated their lives to this profession. So don't think you know better than they do. Stay away from answers like, well, I've been watching the news a lot lately, and I see there's a lot of injustice going on in police departments, and I want to join the department to bring about change. Comments like that are so patronizing, condescending, and disrespectful that you should be ashamed of yourself for even thinking about answering a question like that. Don't think you know what law enforcement's about until you actually do it. Another thing to stay away from is the money. Now, this is tricky. This can be a good reason, but this can't be the only reason. Officers know if you come on solely for the money, you will not last. You will feel you are severely underpaid for what you are exposed to, and you will quickly become disgruntled, stop working, and even quit. However, for those who are sheepdogs that we talked about earlier, the money is just a plus. You will be grateful you get paid for what you love to do. You know, they say find something you love to do and you'll never work another day in your life. And that's kind of what police work's about. It has to fit your personality, has to fit your temperament, and you have to be passionate about it, because if you're not, you'll be disgruntled. Officers that are disgruntled now, they've sort of lost their passion and why they came on the job to begin with. They got caught up in politics. Remember, this career is not about you. It's about serving other people. Once you make it about yourself, you're going to be disgruntled. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. You can retire a millionaire in a career in law enforcement, but that's for another video. Well, I hope that helps. Remember, be sincere. Use those past experience. Tell them a story. And remember, stay away from thinking that you know more than they do. You don't. And don't let steady income or the pension be the only reason why you want to join the Thin Blue Line. I hope you like this. Leave some comments if there are other questions you may have. I'll try to answer those questions.